Hi everyone, I'm Joanna. I'm an affiliate researcher at Swinburne University, and today I'll be talking about ecosystem mimicry in the built environment. So as I'm sure we're all aware, the built environment is responsible for a myriad of sustainability issues across the land, sea and sky. Globally, it's one of the largest contributors to energy use, water use, land use, atmospheric pollution and waste. Faced with these issues, it's become more important than ever to think about how we want to design our future built environment for the good of both people and the planet. A proposed solution is biomimicry, which literally means to imitate life. It's defined by founder Janine Benyus as the conscious emulation of life's genius and involves adapting natural solutions to address human problems. So at biomimicry, designers can imitate nature at 3 levels: form, process, and ecosystem. An example of form-level mimicry can be seen here in the Stuttgart airport, where columns have mimicked trees to enhance structural efficiency and reduce material use. At the process level, behavior is mimicked. So the Eastgate Center in Zimbabwe mimics the passive temperature regulation of a termite mound to completely remove the need for an active HVAC system and maintain constant, comfortable temperatures even within really hot climates. However, although sustainable temperature control was achieved, there are still many questions that haven't been answered, such as what was the Eastgate Center made from? How were materials transported there? How was it constructed? How is it lit up? And how does it actually fit in with the existing natural ecosystem? It's impossible to make all of this sustainable by just imitating one form or process. Instead, we have to look at biomimicry at the 3rd level, the ecosystem level, where we imitate how components work together to foster the health of the entire system. This level of mimicry holds the most potential for holistic sustainability. However, it's currently being hindered by today's siloed approach to the built environment, where disciplines work separately, focusing on isolated design elements rather than on holistic cooperation. While this has allowed for the technical imitation of form and process, ecosystem mimicry, and the contributing social dynamics that allow for such effective collaboration are particularly underexplored. As such, my research aims to investigate how mimicking nature's ecosystems may inspire academia and industry to achieve holistic sustainability and foster regeneration in our built environments. There are 3 objectives associated with this. First is to identify the perceived barriers preventing interdisciplinary and intersectoral collaboration. Second is to explore the current attitudes towards and perceptions of biomimicry and sustainability. And I'll use the findings from these first 2 objectives to develop frameworks for academia and industry to implement ecosystem biomimicry into their practice. As for where my research sits within ArcManu, I'm part of the synthesis lab. So I'll investigate challenges in data communication and stakeholder alignment to explore how digital tools and collaborative frameworks can enhance productivity used by AEC academics and practitioners. So to do so, I'll conduct qualitative research in the form of semi-structured interviews. Line-by-line analysis will be performed on the transcripts using grounded theory to identify emerging themes and patterns, and actor network theory to trace relationships between stakeholders, also acknowledging the role of non-human actors like the natural environment in sustainable design. So my participants will consist of a global cohort of sustainability-driven professionals and will be sampled until theoretical saturation occurs, which is projected to be at around 40 participants. However, today I'll just present the findings from 28 participants whose transcripts have been analysed so far and present some findings into 2 objectives. First, looking at some challenges to interdisciplinary collaboration, and second, looking at the concept of sustainability and how that differs between engineers and architects. So first, the challenges to interdisciplinary collaboration were found to be largely social in nature, with things like different goals, team dynamics, and personality clashes often popping up. On the technical side, participants cited having different terminologies and also intellectual differences. However, although they mentioned these challenges, they often stressed that these social issues were more pressing. An engineer stated, "I don't really believe the problem is in the intellectual aspects of the research. Everyone is fairly open, passionate, and we're all envisioning what to do in the future. The hurdles have always been in the relationships and behavior. They've never been intellectual." These social issues are further reflected in participants' differing definitions of sustainability and the concept of sustainability as a whole. So here we can see many different definitions between architects and engineers when asked what sustainability means, showing that although it's a really widespread term, the concept of sustainability hasn't yet been clearly defined. So as an engineer said, sustainability is one of the words that we use a lot in our daily life, but we forget why. We forget the essence of it. And an architect said, "I have a degree in it, but I actually don't know how to define it." However, both architects and engineers did tend to take an environmental approach to this question, but architects did tend to have a broader perspective with things like resource consumption reduction and responsibility, and also ecology as a broad term. They also tended to cite the importance of balancing ecological with social sustainability and ensuring that sustainable designs have a social contribution. On the other hand, engineers tended to have more focused goals like material reduction, pollution reduction, and also uniquely noted how construction should be simplified. They also mentioned the importance of making sure that sustainable designs were accessible, benefiting not just those who could afford it, but the entire population. Moving on to challenges to sustainability, we can see some more commonalities between engineers and architects. So both largely cited the complexity of sustainability as an issue and also talked about the lack of education and policy regulating sustainable design. However, engineers tended to cite more social issues, talking about the apathy of their clients or colleagues in sustainable design. So an engineer stated, "You can't lecture people to care about something that they just don't care about. I think the biggest caveat is that not everybody cares." Meanwhile, architects talked about how the accessibility of sustainability was an issue and also about how they felt really restricted in the design decisions that they had to make. So a practicing architect stated, "We're conscious that sustainability is an important thing, which we want to do, but we're also conscious that we're not going to get paid anymore to do this stuff." Finally, the question of who is responsible for sustainability was asked. And here we can see, again, some more commonalities. So both architects and engineers tended to perceive sustainability as either bottom-up driven, as by the community, or top-down driven, as by the government. Far fewer talked about their own role in practice and their own responsibilities in practice, which reflects the problem of dispersed responsibility. When everybody is accountable, nobody is. So an architect stated, "When you make a building, there's policy, there's architects, engineers, there's government. I think everybody takes part. Nobody is fully responsible for everything." And an engineer stated, "There's this responsibility to take responsibility, but then who actually takes the responsibility is the one that becomes responsible, and no one forces that on anyone else." So overall, we can see that there's still a lot that needs to be done for our built environment to function as a natural ecosystem. First, the barriers to interdisciplinary collaboration are largely social in nature rather than technical, reflecting a need for improved communication between disciplines. The lack of clear definitions and roles in sustainable design means that even common barriers aren't being collectively tackled. However, we can take advantage of this diversity. Engineers might continue focusing on techniques and innovation in materials and construction methods, and offer architects clarity, direction, and aid in the practical implementation of innovation. Meanwhile, architects might continue having their social focus and their broader, more holistic definitions of sustainability, and in turn provide engineers with helpful social dynamics and hopefully broaden their perspectives. So I think we're all here today because we know that our built environment has to change and grow and evolve to suit the changing needs of our growing populations, and everyone will play a part in that. But to finish off, I'd like to ask you a question that I've asked in my interviews and has always yielded really interesting results. which is, what do you think your responsibility is? Thank you.
Joanna, do we have any questions or comments?
Should have been first.
This one should have been first?
Yes.
That's my bad. I'll take that one.
Because it almost addressed a lot. It almost addressed a lot of the comments that we were making in the previous sustainability presentations. So, like, it pretty much hit every point that Andy made and Andy and I have made. I think, in terms of who's responsible, talks about lobbying. It's pretty much it. It's literally our comments summarized in research. We could have
Could have stopped Andrew talking.
Well, you could have stopped me talking and just pointed at Joanna's research. Exactly. And therefore, good work.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. It was great to see that presentation. I love biomimicry. I think nature is the ultimate inventor. I did a lot of work in previous years around examples of biomimicry that transferred into real world, and there's examples that you've probably seen, the B-2 bomber and the Falcon and Burrs, which was an American mechanical engineer that saw them stuck on his dog's fur and then created Velcro and turned that into $1 billion industry.
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether you're looking at those other examples and how that then links to the built environment, because I just, as you were talking, did a bit of a Google search. There's not too much out there in terms of the biomimicry within built environment that is translated into real world examples.
Yeah.
I see it as an excellent opportunity. There's precedents set in other complementary disciplines, and I'm encouraging you to look at those and how that transfers into the built environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a big part of what I found in my lit review. I was first interested in the concept of biomimicry in general. And in my lit review, I found that there were tons of really exciting academic explorations, but not a lot of it had been translated into practice. So that was why I was really interested in looking at the collaboration between academia and industry, seeing how some of those more theoretical innovations could be translated into practice, and the barriers specifically that are stopping that from happening.
Thank you. I also could relate to a lot of what you were saying, and I worked in a multidisciplinary firm for a long time, and definitely it was not about technical, it was often about cultural aspects, and in this case the architects were often the traditional lead consultant. One of the things that I think could be interesting to look at is when you have a multidisciplinary team, like engineering is not one person, it's potentially up to 10 disciplines. And one of the projects I delivered, it turns out that our civil team, who probably had the smallest fee, design fee, in the whole project, actually had the biggest impact to the construction cost. So the ability to be more efficient in the way that we did our levelling of our site and reducing soil movement and avoiding rock. And yet they were really the smallest player. And I feel like sometimes, and I learned from this, is just because they're the smallest design fee doesn't mean they have the smallest impact. And I think there's something in the way that might eventuate in the way that we lead projects as we start to look at where the biggest impact is, not the lead.
For sure. Thank you.
Hey, Joanna. Thank you for your presentation. It's quite a bit of similarity, I think, in your interviews of what you were trying to achieve in your interviews with sustainability. I was trying to do with circularity, so it's a bit of a similarity there. Could you clarify? I might have missed this, but I was definitely following the beginning of your presentation about biomimicry, and then I wasn't quite sure why then the definition of sustainability became a key thing that you need to answer to then address the biomimicry question. Could you clarify that, please?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I was looking specifically at ecosystem biomimicry. which is kind of how all these different components of an ecosystem work together and sort of work together to foster the health of the entire system. And so I thought that an important part of that was making sure that we have these shared goals and perspectives. Yeah, because we're all working towards something collectively, or if we are working towards something collectively, then we need to know what that something is.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, it does. I just does it unlock after doing it, after now having this idea of a better idea of sustainability, does it unlock the biomimicry potential you want to get to, or was there another step? Or
I think it's about looking at all of these different perspectives and where they converge and where they diverge, and trying to take advantage of the diversity, and that's where the ecosystem biomimicry kind of comes in. One of the pillars of ecosystems is that it takes advantage of diversity and leverages that. So seeing at how we can use these disciplinary differences to our advantage.
close to the normal question. Then thank you for that answer. I then also saw you using actor network theory, which is super interesting. I mean, super hard as well, but you know, more for you for tackling it. When it comes to that point, are you going to be applying actor network theory to the interview data that you've received as well?
Yes.
And if so, do you have examples? Or I know it's I forgot his name now, who came up with it, but the books I've read, I've never really seen a good system drawing about an actor network. I was wondering if you were going to try and visualize it.
Yeah, that was a problem I came up with as well when trying to look at examples of actor network theory. A lot of it is more so in business and smaller scale businesses, especially. So figure out how to translate that into the broader ecosystem of the built environment is definitely a challenge that I hope to see through in the final stages. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. I wanted to mention another branch. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's called eco-mimicry.
Okay.
Might be worth a sort of investigation, which is sort of a different, separate, kind of branch. But there's a lot of stuff in the built environment in that area. The other sort of comment I wanted to make is the ecosystem side of things, sort of tailing into that conversation, is it's really complex, and I don't know how it boils down to simple kind of questionnaires or indexes on sustainability. It's you can go down to sort of systems dynamics, modelling, simulation, with populations, predator prey models, and a whole range of different things. And I'd just be sort of cautionary tale that it's maybe something to sort of scale down the interest in the ecosystem side of things, because it's hard to know where to start and where to stop.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Hey, so, I mean, this is fascinating, and I think there's a business side of biomimicry that I don't think we talk about enough, which is, biomimicry is all about efficiency of efficiency of structure of material to actually achieve a sustainable outcome, things like that. And because a lot of the forms that you see, and the example on the screen now is one we know very well, they're often seen as expensive. They're seen as, why are you doing this, as opposed to a more traditional building or anything like that. But there are inherent gains from that. In that case, it had to be done because it was a working clay pit when it was built. And so they just needed to, intersect some spheres with it, rather than have to level it all out, do a big concrete base, all of that stuff, and then build a big glass building over the top of it. So that had a very deliberate reason why they did the soap bubble approach. So I think what will be interesting, I think, from this is there a way in which we can describe biomimicry, not just for its sustainable impacts, but as a very strong business case to clients as to why we're doing this? Because it's something that can very easily be value engineered out, when budgets get squeezed and all of that. So I think that would be interesting to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Hi, Joanna. Thank you for your presentation. That was really great. I'm going to bring it back to the academic side a little bit more. I would challenge you to rethink where you put grounded theory in terms of, so I think in your diagram, it was an analysis method.
Yes. So
Yeah. If you've already done it, ignore this comment, but I go back to Glazer and Strauss's original text on what it really means and using it as an approach rather than just that tiny component, because I think that could add a lot to overall research in terms of the richness of it.
You. Any final questions or comments? We've got time.
Thank you very much. I think biomimicry, somehow it's always got a really contentious side as well, because like it isn't nature, you know, it's like you talk about diversity, but in nature, diversity breeds diversity. And, you know, this sort of amazing, and none of that kind of, none of that complexity, emergence, system behavior is usually there in biomimicry. So I mean, just to be provocative, is it just we need more nature, you know, as well as, or instead of sort of focus on biomimicry?
yeah, yeah, that's definitely something that came up and something that I was thinking about as well. Is maybe we just, I think that it's something that I thought about in my review and all of that stuff. When I was looking at sustainable design, are we in our efforts to imitate nature, perhaps replacing it? But then I think the tenets of biomimicry are that it's not just a design method, but it was intended to be more of a philosophical movement as well, about living with nature. So that means trying to replicate, yes, but also, like you said, trying to bring more of it into our design as well.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Joanna.